Welcome to the Pinell County Community College District Governing Board meeting. In observance of the current Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines and Arizona Governor Douglas Ducey's Executive Order 2020-52 regarding social distancing, this meeting is being held virtually. I'd like to acknowledge those from Central Arizona College in attendance. I am Dave Odiorn, Governing Board President. Also with us, Evelyn Kasuga, Governing Board Vice President and Secretary. Gladys Christensen, Board Member. Dan Miller, Board Member. Jerry Walker, Board Member. Dr. Jackie Elliott, Central Arizona College President. Chris Wadka, Vice President of Business Affairs. Dr. Jenny Cardenas, Vice President of Student Services. Dr. Mary Kay Gilliand, Vice President of Academic Affairs. Brandy Bain, Vice President of Talent Development. And Mary Lou Hernandez, Executive Assistant to the President and Governing Board. As I call the meeting to order, I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda, to adopt the agenda. Motion by Jerry. I saw your hand. Could you turn? Thanks. And a second?
Second the motion.
Second by Evelyn. Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And we'll move to consideration of the consent agenda. All of the items on the following items are part of the consent agenda and are to be approved by one motion. There will be no specific discussion of these items, and any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any governing board member. Are there any items that need to be removed? Hearing none, I would accept a motion to accept the items on the consent agenda.
So made.
Thank you, Jerry. Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mary Lou, would you please take a roll call vote?
Yes. Evelyn Kasuga,
Yes.
Gladys Christensen,
Yes.
Dan Miller,
Yes.
Jerry Walker,
Aye.
Dr. Odiorn.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mary Lou. Item 4 on the agenda is an action item, the preliminary draft of the 2021-22 budget for publication. Mr. Wadka.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon to all of the board members, Madam President, Secretary, colleagues, and any guests online this afternoon. Every year, the month of April, we bring to you the following year's draft of the budget. So this is the budget for fiscal year 22. That starts July 1st. I want to say that is one of the easiest and quickest budgets that we have put together in this institutions, and at least the 10 years that I've been here, largely probably due to we haven't been on campus for most of the last year, and due to we haven't really made any significant changes. In your packet are schedules A, B, and C, which are in the required format that the state receives. Just a few highlights that I'd like to go through on Schedule A. The current general fund, what we're looking at is about a 2.2% decrease, which is a little over $1 million. And that is due to not only of elimination and reduction of some of the salaries during the year, but also a key thing is we're not proposing any salary increase for employees for next year. Therefore, the general fund overall is decreasing by a little over 2%. The other two major funds that you see on Schedule A is the Unexpended Plant Fund, which is going up by $7 million, and which is about a 300% increase. And that is due to, if you recall, last year we started capital lease program. Due to the expenditure limitation issues that we have, if we lease items, then we're able to exclude them from our expenditure limitation. So therefore, for our next year's budget, we are increasing that so we're able to lease over a number of years, pay that lease back over a number of years, and that's accounted for in the unexpended plant fund, and it will also provide us expenditure relief in the foreseeable future as long as we have the capital lease. The last fund, I should say, is the retirement of debt. That is going down slightly, about $1.5 million, which is about 15.5%. And that is due entirely, if you remember, we just recently restructured the general obligation bonds. And also we're changing some of our taxable uncollectible rates. But the 2 points there have reduced our plant fund by 15%. The only other thing to highlight on this first page of Schedule A is on the bottom, which is the primary and secondary tax levy information. As you can see, our primary tax rate from last year to this year is going down by 4 cents, which translates to about 2% overall on our primary tax levy. And if you see the secondary tax levy, that has gone down by a little over 11 cents, which is about 39%. So overall, the tax rate for primary and secondary levies is going down by 6.6%. So that's good news. It's obviously for our taxpayers when they have less taxes to pay to the college, both on their primary and on their secondary levy. So that's the highlight of our revenues and expenditures, which are projected on Schedule A. The other two schedules just show a little more detail, meaning breaking out what the revenues are, breaking out what the expenditures are. And then the third page breaks out the expenditures by our various categories that we have to report on, such as instruction, academic support, public support, and so forth down the line. So overall, we are asking the board to approve this draft budget so we may do our publications in the newspapers, and that we may come back in the next month and ask for final approval of the budget. And one key thing here is to remember that we cannot come back and increase the budget in any way. We could further reduce it if needed, but we cannot increase it. So at this point, I'd entertain any questions anyone may have. Otherwise, we'd like to get the approval so we can start our publication process.
Any questions for Mr. Walker? Then may I have a motion to approve the preliminary draft of the budget?
Motion to
So
approve.
made.
Thank you. I think that was moved by Mr. Miller, seconded by Mr. Walker. Any discussion?
I
Mary Lou,
would
would
second
you
the
please-
motion.
Pardon me, Gladys?
I said
ahead.
I would second the motion.
Okay, thank you. I think we had a second, Gladys, from Mr.
Oh, had we?
Walker. I
I'd
think
not,
he-
I'd not heard it.
I think he beat you in there. But thank you. We'll find another one for you. Mary Lou, would you please take a roll call vote?
Yes. Evelyn Kasuga,
Yes.
Gladys Christensen,
Yes.
Dan Miller,
Yes.
Jerry Walker,
Aye.
Dr. Odiorn.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Next is our report from the college president. Dr. Elliott?
Thank you. Good afternoon, governing board members, faculty, staff, and guests who are joining us today. I have some updates from the districts. In particular, our return to campus plan and guidelines continue to be updated according to current CDC guidelines. All this information can be found on our website under our COVID resource page. The college, we're excited that the college will reopen to students in the public on May 3rd. However, we will still have in place social distancing protocols and ask that people wear face coverings when they're not able to maintain 6 feet apart. The Signal Peak campus continues to serve as both a testing and vaccination site for the COVID-19. And this is a partnership that we have with Embry Health. So College will continue in a virtual modality for most of the summer, with more face-to-face added in the fall. And plans are underway right now. Dr. Cardenas and her team to distribute the second round of CARES dollars, or CRISA dollars as they're referring to them, to students and to support the ongoing college operations. And Chris is handling the operations side. And of importance to note is the virtual graduation ceremony will be held on May 14th at 7 p.m. And the link to watch the ceremony can be found on the graduation page of the college's website. So we look forward to having all of you join us for that event. And I'll entertain any questions on the district update before I move on to the legislative updates.
Any questions for Dr. Elliott?
Just a comment, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
I just want to, as we're coming out of this and going back to what we remember the college being, the staff and faculty were thrown quite a pretty big curveball, and I think they hit it out of the park. I'm looking forward to resuming as usual, but there were a lot of struggles, and I know a lot of conversations, a lot of planning that went on, and it has not gone unnoticed, at least by this board member. So I appreciate all your efforts behind the scenes.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. It obviously has been a huge team effort. And as I was talking with individuals today, now we get to go back and rebuild and reshape the college based on what the things we've learned during this time. So it is really kind of exciting for us. So moving on to the legislative update. These are bills that we've talked about before, but Senate Bill 1277. This is a legislation that would release public entities who have acted in good faith to protect individuals from any pandemic any related civil action. And that has been signed by the governor. So we can't be held liable if we did everything in good faith effort. And I think we as an institution have and will continue to act in good faith to protect people from infection. House Bill 2523, it is the one that would allow community colleges with less than 75,000 in population to offer four-year degrees. It has passed the House, but it has been moved around several Senate committees. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. House Bill 2836, it is the one that appropriates $21 million to community colleges. I think it's 618,000 would be for Central Arizona College. It is now in Senate Appropriations Committee. And Senate Bill 1294, which increases the multiplier for full-time student equivalents enrolled in career and technical education programs from 0.3 to 0.1 and allows for a 3-year grace period and exceeding expenditure limitations, has passed the Senate. It is also being passed around to different House committees. So we'll have to hope that it will get back out of that and be voted on here soon. Those are the key pieces of legislation that we've been watching. And I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions for Dr. Elliott on the legislative update? Hearing none. Mr. Wadka, Business Affairs Report, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. 2 reports, the monthly budget and then our purchases over 20,000. So regarding the budget, in your packets, you have information through the month of February. Very similar to the previous month. In the month of February, our expenditures this year are running at about 54.5% compared to budget. Last year at this time, it was 54.2%, so just 0.3% off compared to our expenditures last year. Revenues are running slightly lower than last year, but as you recall, we had a slight bump in the appropriation that we received early last year. Otherwise, there is nothing significant that has changed. 4 months left in the fiscal year, and we're running pretty much where we should be in terms of budget to actual. If there are no questions, I'd like to move on to the purchases.
Questions for Mr. Wadka on the budget? Hearing none, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. A number of purchases over 20,000. I'll go through them now. First one is for temporary help, Adecco out of Mesa, Arizona, in the amount of 20,000. That is to create a open purchase order, as we usually do, for temporary help that we may need. And typically we need temporary help in the facilities department. So that is an open purchase order and is actually going to be funded through the CARES Act. Next one is a hot water pressure kits, Aero Equipment Rental and Sales, Phoenix, Arizona, 25,760.25. That is to purchase, we purchased 4 hot water pressure washers for the facilities department. That is also something new during our COVID times, and that is going to be funded through the CARES dollars as well. Next one is a fixed fee billing for ERP services, Anthology Incorporated, Orlando, Florida, 62,500. That is to contract for professional services per our contract for the next fiscal year. Campus Nexus Suite Maintenance, Anthology Inc., Orlando, 157,581.03. That is the annual payment per our contract for the maintenance for the entire ERP system. Cloud Setup Fee, Anthology Inc., Orlando, Florida, 38,500. This is a one-time fee of what it's going to cost us to set up the cloud with our computer system. The next one is mobile diesel generator, Bud Griffin and Associates, Scottsdale, Arizona, 20,432.50. That is to purchase a mobile generator for the police department. That is something that we used during COVID to fund our little booth that we had as people were driving in for check-in points and so forth. So we purchased this mobile generator that the police department can use for other functions and activities, and that is also coming from our CARES funding. Trend Micro Email Security for the Cloud, CCB Technology, Racine, Wisconsin, 56,980. That is to purchase the Trend Micro Email Security for the cloud products. This is a one-time purchase as we're migrating to the cloud. Monitors for the district are the next two for Dell USA out of Chicago, Illinois, 76,178.65, and also 47,454.91. That is to purchase replacement computers for the district, something we do a couple of times during the year. The second amount of these, the 47,001, is something though that we are funding through the CARES dollars. ServiceNow implementation, Dell USA Chicago, 99,375. That is a new service, a new software ticketing system that the Information Technology Department will deploy. Also from Dell. Computers for the district, Dell USA Chicago, Illinois, 93,733.64. That is also to purchase replacement computers for the district. An excavator for our heavy equipment program, Empire Machinery, Los Angeles, California, 101,569.72. Classroom chair replacement. Each year we replace different areas on different campuses. Goodman's Interiors, 301,540.22. And this was primarily to replace the chairs in Signal Peak campus and primarily the O and the T buildings. Coagulation analyzer, Henry Schein Incorporated, Melville, New York, 21,273.29. That is to purchase a coagulation analyzer, and that is going to be used by the medical lab technician program. And the next one is a chemistry analyzer, McKesson Medical Surgical out of Richmond, Virginia, 22,628.53. And that is also going towards the medical lab technician program. A few more. Zayo WAN and Internet Equipment, NTT America Solutions out of Charlotte, North Carolina, 480,589.54. That is purchase equipment that is needed to support the next generation speeds. Defibrillators Life Packs, One Beat CPR Learning Center, LLC out of Hollywood, Florida, 40,490. That is to purchase the defibrillators and the life packs for our EMS program. Webcams and headsets for Sync Online, Troxel Communications, Phoenix, Arizona, $24,482.70. That is to purchase the webcams and the headsets that are going to be used for Sync Online and also for the web conferencing. And the last one is we replaced the cooling tower at the Signal Peak campus, Veritex Solutions out of Phoenix, Arizona, in the amount of $412,412.70. Any questions on these purchases?
Any questions for Mr. Watka on those purchases? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Our next item is the monitoring report. Mr. Watka, Dr. Cardenas, Dr. Julian.
I'll jump right back into it then. I have 6.1 and 6.2. 6.1 are the expenditures per FTSE, which is our full-time student equivalent. This is information that we have compiled for fiscal year 17, 18, and 19, which is the latest information available. You'll see that we are above our peers and above our target that the board set back 4 years ago now. Looking at information in 2021 and beyond, I am very confident that this amount is going down, but it's going to depend on a number of factors. Obviously, the numerator and the denominator, the numerator being our expenses, which are reducing, while our denominator is our FTSE. If FTSE increases while our expenses stay constant, obviously the price per FTSE, cost per FTSE will decrease, or depending on also the expenditures. But if they both continue to decrease, then our expenditure per FTSE stays the same and actually increases. But based on information and preliminary audits and so forth for fiscal year 21, we've done a good job in maintaining our expenditures. We did a good job in continuing to evaluate both full-time and part-time positions over the last few years, and also the new budget that you just approved. And we'll continue to evaluate, benchmarks for staffing levels from our other community colleges, and also to continue to evaluate which programs we're offering at which campus to make sure that we offer the most efficient and cost-effective programs. So I'm confident this expenditures per FTSE will be going down, but it is a great unknown we do not have the control we have control over our expenses, but we don't really have the control over our FTSE numbers. So hopefully they will continue to rise. I think we just received good news that our fall numbers, even though early, are good news in terms of our fall semester numbers compared to last year in this early process. So be happy to answer any questions on 6.1 for you.
Any questions for Mr. Watka? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. The second one is tuition and fees. The trend data here shows that we are now significantly below the average. And the reason for that is that this year, upcoming year, new academic upcoming year, is the third year in a row that we have held tuition dollars constant. So we have not had a tuition increase in the last 3 years. We've slightly just increased some of the academic fees, course fees, and so forth. But compared to our peers now, we are at about 25, well, we are at 2580, which is 30 credit hours, 15 per semester at our $82 per rate. The other colleges, Arizona community colleges, are at about 2697. So about a little over $100 higher than us on average for a 30 semester load. We'll continue to monitor tuition and fees. I know the board always wants to make sure we're either at average or below. A couple of years ago, we were slightly above average, then we become average. Now we're slightly below the average. So we'll continue monitoring this and see where we stand. compared to our counterparts in the future. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on tuition and fees.
Any questions for Mr. Wadkoff? Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. I'll jump in here. Good afternoon, Dr. O'Diorn, Dr. Elliott, members of the board. We are going to be presenting about average course size. And I have here with me today, Dr. Jeff Bunkelman, who is actually a longtime CAC employee. He was a science faculty division chair and has been a dean of science, math, and business for many years now, quite a few years. And he's actually taken the lead in some of our efforts related to this particular board monitoring report. So I'm going to invite him on now so he can present to you. And so you get a little more variety than just me speaking to you most months.
Okay, thank you, Mary Kay, and thank you for the opportunity to present to the board. If you look in this figure 6.3, basically the goal is to try to have an average class size of about 20 students. And it looked like in 2017-18, we were well on our way. However, there was a major dip in 18-19, and that was probably unexpected, but what it told us is that, hey, we need to do a better job and we need to make some changes. So in 2019, as you can see, we are rising up again. And I'm hoping that even though we suffered some enrollment losses in the last few years, that this number will continue to improve. Some of the improvements that we've done, what we've asked our divisions to do is to stop offering so many classes. It basically, fewer classes, fill up those classes, and if we have a wait list and we need to add classes, we'll add classes. But everybody's really hesitant to make cuts because it involves reducing loads, maybe laying off some of our part-time faculty. I think we are over that hump now. The other thing is constant reinforcement of our goal. In other words, every opportunity we have, let's talk about trying to maximize our enrollment in our classes. What are the strategies that we can use? How can we do things that are different? This is a topic that comes up every semester, especially when we get closer and closer to the first day of the semester. The other thing we've pretty much set up is go, no-go days. In other words, the division has to look at their enrollment and decide which classes are going to be canceled and which classes will remain. That's a very important decision, but it's better for the students so that if we have 2 or 3 students in a class, we cancel it, we contact them, and we give them alternate choices. Now, we do have some improvements in place. One of the improvements is trying to create a better scheduling tool. And one tool that we created recently is a heat map. And what this heat map does is it basically looks at the density of our course offerings during the week. In other words, do we offer maybe a high number of courses in the morning and not enough classes in the evening? So this type of a heat map will give us really a good visual rather than just trying to stare at the schedule. Another variation of the heat map that we're looking into, we're not there yet, but taking a look at the students enrolled in a degree and certificate. For example, if you have 100 students enrolled in a computer technology course, well, then you should probably not offer them more than 4 or 5 CIS 120 classes. It doesn't make sense to offer 7 or 8. There aren't that many students who will enroll. So this is something that we're looking at in the future, and I think it has a great potential. The other thing is we're trying to change our culture, and culture is probably the most difficult thing to change. But we've had a very grand learning experience during the pandemic. What our faculty have been able to do is develop their curriculum and learn new skills to teach online. And that includes live streaming, offering a class online, but at specific days and times. And I think this ability is going to carry over into the next year, the year after that, and the year going forward. I know that we heard a lot about students who do not like online learning, But I'm going to tell you, nobody likes big changes, rapid changes in a short period of time. But I think we're going to see a lot of students that say, hey, I prefer hybrid classes. I prefer online. I prefer live streaming. So this is going to offer great new opportunities for us to maximize our enrollment and still reach our students out into these more remote and distant campuses. And that just concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Bunkelman?
And I'm here as well if you have questions specifically for me, but I think Dr. Bunkelman has it covered.
Hearing no questions. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you very much.
I will be finishing up the monitoring reports number 6.4, which is the percentage of students who are receiving financial aid excluding loans. And I'm very happy to have Elisa Juarez here with us today, who's our Director of Financial Aid, who is the queen of financial aid for CAC and knows all things financial aid for sure. So the chart that we're looking at now, 6.4, indicates, as I had shared, the number of students who are receiving financial aid. This is something that's very important to the institution and that we want to, just as we've talked about with many of our other processes, do everything that we can to remove barriers. And one of the biggest barriers for our student population, as well as many student populations across the country, is the financial barrier. Our financial aid department has done a fabulous job at creating different processes and putting different things in place that really help to increase access to our students regarding financial aid. Back in 2017, the original goal was set that 50% of our students would be receiving aid and have access to aid. That was changed in 2019 and increased to 60%, and we've since exceeded that goal. So in 2019, 67% of our students had access to and were receiving financial aid, again, excluding any student loans. And we anticipate that number increasing as we've seen just year after year, the number of students who understand the process and have been able to navigate the process and receive funds. So I would like to introduce Elisa to share some of our recent improvements and planned improvements within financial aid.
Thank you, Jenny. Good afternoon, Governing Board, Board President, faculty, staff. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to come today and share some of the improvements that we've accomplished and are very excited having done so. Some of the, when Jenny asked me what were some of the improvements that we felt contributed to the increase in the number of students receiving financial aid, one of those that came to mind was the Department of Ed's recent change in the last number of years, allowing students to complete the federal student aid application at an earlier time, moving the start date from January 1st to October 1st. And this really allowed not only my office to be able to process awards sooner and providing award packages to students, but also helping students that are first-time college-bound students to better determine what college they really wanted to attend and really considered to attend. And a lot of times the award package that they receive contributes to that, kind of that deciding factor of what college they will attend. In addition to that, we took advantage of the technology that is available to us, specifically with the DocuSign software. That software enabled us to take our scholarship application from a PDF format to totally, completely online. We provide a link on our webpage. Students can fully complete the application, sign it. It is a secure type of software. They digitally sign their application and submit it to us, and we get it in real time. And so that allows us to really stay on top of the number of applications we receive, be able to provide scholarship opportunities to students a lot sooner than we had before. And we've actually seen a 42% increase in the number of students that submit the application. So it is definitely a huge win for our department. So there's the improvements that we have recently accomplished and really excited to share with you. Thank you, Jenny.
Talking away muted. And the planned improvements as well, if you can share those with us. So things that you've got coming up in the future.
Oh, yes, definitely. So we're right in the middle of revamping our webpage. We have a Paying for College webpage, part of the college's website, and it is a conjoined effort with the Financial Aid Office and the Student Accounts Office, so that we're able to provide all information in one location for both areas, since both departments work hand in hand in assisting students to finance their education. So we've got a group of both individuals within our departments as well as outside to provide their perspectives on planned improvements, and the goal being to make it more user-friendly to the student, navigation easier, and have all the information that we can at their fingertips. So that is something that's up and coming. We are also adding information regarding student loans. Always considering student loans the last resort in financing education, trying to keep our students from not having to borrow loans, but in many times that is the only availability for them to fund their education. So we want to provide students with what it is to apply for a loan, preventing going into default, repayment options. So we're going to have a lot new information in regards to loans on our webpage. So really excited to unveil that here real soon. Also looking at improving our student portal. We're currently undergoing some training with the goal of enhancing the document center, allowing students the how-to in uploading their student documents, making it much more simplified. Having alert notifications where when a student logs into the student portal, they get important information through web alerts directly on their portal. So we're hoping to make the improvements there. And then lastly, we have Campus Nexus Student, and we've been working with Anthology in the last few months and continue to do so to really hone in on its functionality, really taking and using the functionality that it has to offer us to a higher level. Wanting to use Contact Manager module within Campus Nexus so that we can provide constant information to our students as we work with their financial aid files. So using workflows in that module, definitely, and then automate more processes so that it lessens the burden on staff having to paper push or process individual files, having the system to be able to do that automatically for us. So definitely some up and coming improvements that we're hoping to share here with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions for Lisa or Jenny?
I have
Yes.
one.
Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
I really appreciate those bar graphs that you use. How do we know which items within those? Excuse me, just for a second. Let me get my tongue untied here. How do we know which programs or which items within each specific bar graph are more effective than others, and what we're doing to either enhance or eliminate programs that are not effective, so we can drive the bar graph higher overall? Does that make sense?
Mr. Walker, are you speaking specifically to this financial aid slide, or in general the charts that are
At the
provided?
bar graph right here, outcome 6, stewardship. The finance is what I'm talking about. What are we doing to determine which things we need to put more emphasis on and which things we need to put less emphasis on? It doesn't give you anything to understand there. It's just that you've got an overall picture and you don't know what's good and what's not. From my perspective, I don't see what is effective and what is not effective.
I think maybe Chris might want to answer, but I think one of the things that we do when we look at these is we do kind of some root cause analysis. And so especially for 6.1 expenditures for full FTSE, we know where our challenges are when we compare ourselves to other institutions in the iPads. So the expenditures for full-time student equivalent are also broken up in iPads by different categories, those categories that Chris discussed earlier. So we can see how much we spend on instructional support compared to our peers, how much we spend on our employees compared to our peers. And then we dig down deeper in those. And I could certainly send you the iPads report, but you're absolutely right. These are higher numbers. This is the higher level, but iPads does have it broken down, and that is what we look at. But I think that's what you're asking. I could certainly send you that report. Chris, do you want to add anything, or is
No,
that?
you're absolutely correct, Dr. Elliott. This is a summarization, a grand total of all expenditures. This doesn't show the picture on individual programs and history of individual programs and new programs or old programs being extinguished, et cetera. So the iPads would really break that down further into the categories for a better picture analysis versus this high level picture.
And that is what we use. We use as VPs, myself and VPs, to kind of say, okay, we really got to look at our staffing levels when we were looking at some of those and questioning, why are we so much higher in this one category than our peers? And then diving down and looking at that data. And that's kind of what we do. And we just report it to you at a higher level, like continue to evaluate all vacant full-time and part-time positions. That's part of that iPads dig down.
Thank you. I think that would be helpful, Dr. Elliott, if you could send the iPads
Sure.
so people
I'll
can
send the
see
most
that.
recent to the board.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Evelyn, I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And Jenny, Elisa, great report. I'm glad to hear all the process improvements. I just have a question. Are students, maybe they're able to do it now, but are they able to compare and contrast other institutions that they're considering? Because CAC is such a great value to our local students. We want them to stay here rather than go somewhere far away and incur debt or whatever it is that gets them to another institution. So can our tools help them do that? Or is there a way for them to do that, compare and contrast? Because, we'd rather have them stay here and get the most out of their education and their financial dollar of what they have. Thanks.
Most definitely. Great question, Evelyn. Yes, students are able to compare data. They are able to, and most high schools are introduced to the College Navigator, which is a place where all of our iPads information. So all of the financial aid percentages, number of dollars that are awarded to students at every institution. So they're able to compare our iPads data, to other schools that they're planning to attend. So that's one mechanism that they're able to use, but also to receive their award letters. If we're able to send them an award letter of what they would receive in financial aid to attend Central Arizona College earlier on, then it helps them to decide what school. A lot of times, a lot of our students have financial needs. So if they're able to obtain a scholarship, federal Pell Grant, federal work study at an institution of lower cost than one of higher cost, then it will provide them good information to be able to make those decisions.
And as students are completing their financial aid, they're able to indicate multiple schools. So they're able to choose different school codes to enter to be able to compare that as well. I don't remember off the top of my head, Elisa, what the number of schools are that they're able to do that with, but
there's 10 of them, 10 options.
Schools. So they can make choices early on. And as Elisa was indicating, if they're completing their FAFSA early, and many high schools have taken on the task of requiring their seniors to complete the FAFSA or encouraging them to complete the FAFSA, those things are happening much earlier, which gives them the opportunity to really take a look at what their opportunities or what their awards might be at different institutions.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Elisa. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that. That brings us to the end of our agenda, but before we adjourn, I just wanted to remind the board members that we are on the threshold of beginning Dr. Elliott's annual performance evaluation. She'll be submitting her self-evaluation to us within the next couple of weeks. As soon as we get that, I will send you an email outlining what our process will be and reminding you of that. You'll remember that last fall we adopted a new process and revised our policy a bit. So this will be our first time through with this new process, and it won't be entirely as we intended to be moving forward, because this is a transition year. So we'll work with that. But we will have that self-evaluation within the next couple of weeks, and we will then have a couple of weeks before the May meeting to begin our consideration of it. There will be an executive session on the May meeting's agenda so that we can discuss that as a board and also with Dr. Elliott. And that process will move forward from there. So be prepared for that coming up in the near future. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 18th, and I would like to thank everyone for attending our virtual meeting. We're adjourned.
Bye, everybody.
Adios.